Shonen anime is filled with good boys. Earnest, hard-working, hard on their sleeves teens who do it not only to be the best or for justice, but for those they hold dear. A lot of these leads are vastly less interesting than their supporting cast, serving as viewer inserts. The sort of folk the target audiences of young boys wish they were. But let's face it, the realest of them all is a sweet boy with a terrible haircut, who gets taken advantage of, who isn't popular amongst his peers, or with the girl he crushes on. He's out of shape, he couldn't read the room if it were handwritten in a language he created. That wondrous child who is very much the embodiment of the lame-ass dweebs we all are, but still outclasses us in the humanity department, is none other than Mob. The defining difference between Mob and Naruto, Deku, or Gon is that Mob is 100% the kid to be picked on. Not just because of his bowl cut, or an easy class punching bag, but because he's an oddity amongst his middle school cohorts. Mob cares. Mob is in possession of a great deal of empathy, and be frank with yourself, my fellow post-high school weebs, you likely look back at quite a few aspects of who you once were in embarrassment. You and I weren't like Mob. You didn't care. Maybe you wanted to, but you knew it'd be uncool. It was way easier that way. It's these diversions into the day-to-day that makes Mob Psycho 100 one of the best shonen series of the last several years. The moments of small-scale honesty, dramatic emotional crescendos, limited in scope, but not the effects upon the individuals involved. An overwhelming catharsis of kindness. I wanted it to be something that feels kind. When I came up with the concept, I was thinking something along the lines of kindness or the connections between people. It ended up being an action manga, but my original idea was a slice of life that happened to include superpowers. That's what manga author 1 had to say about his original intent during an interview on Comic Natalie. This is displayed no better than in the very first episode of Season 2. It begins with none other than the best kind-hearted swindler, Rein Arataka, up to his usual tricks, roping Mob into a late afternoon job to exorcise an evil spirit from a farm. This goes as expected and serves as a toe dipping back into the waters of Mob Psycho 100. What we're really here for comes nearly 9.5 minutes in when the student council president resigns and Mob is persuaded to run in the surprise election. His classmate Ichi convinces him by saying it's a surefire way to impress his crush, Tsubomi. Ichi chastises Mob for being superficial, which he responds in the most Mob way possible, completely oblivious to the fact that Tsubomi is the class idol. He doesn't crush on her because she's that hot popular girl, but because she's a longtime friend who just so happens to be cute. This isn't an I love you Beth Cooper sort of situation where the plain looking nerdy guy with a complex thinks he deserves the cheerleader because he's actually a really nice guy according to himself. Mob is so earnestly Mob that he perceives no social cliques. He doesn't see Tsubomi as out of his league, as leagues don't exist. And so he runs for class president and falls flat on his face, freezing up during his speech, saying nothing. After a deep breath, the auditorium falls silent. A lingering awkwardness dominates. As the defeated Mob leaves school, he finds the one thing that can bring any hormonal middle school kid back from the brink. A white envelope sealed with a red heart sticker. There is roughly 10 minutes left in this episode, and what follows is nothing short of a beautiful halcyon days. Mob meets Emmy after school where she confesses how even though he said nothing, it had to take a lot of courage to run for class president. I get that folks enjoy romances like that of Tsukigakure, where socially clumsy teens plod along for a season's worth of episodes, but this premiere takes the crux of those same themes and distills them, keeping as much emotional punch into 10 poignant minutes. There's the sharing of personal details between two people who hardly know each other, but nevertheless possess feelings, which is right. Teens date each other with foolhardy idealism only to realize the person they thought to be the love of their life is actually not someone they want to spend a single minute with. It's all so superficial. But sometimes there is a spark. Emmy presses Mob, revealing her own passions in the process. She enjoys writing so much that she intends to submit her own story to a competition. There's an ungainliness to this exchange. Emmy reveals she's a writer only to try and brush it off with, "You probably don't care," because she's uncomfortable. Opening up is seen as an immediate mistake. The pair spends a blissful week together. Everything is going splendidly for Mob. From work to dinner with his family, his relationship with his younger brother, it's this incredibly heartfelt turn of tone. Mob might not be in love, but the intimacy of this new friendship births a sensitivity to be emotionally available because Emmy believes him to be worth reciprocating. He's never had this before, and is hitting a gratifying high. Sure, his work as a psychic has helped plenty of folks, but to be able to sit upon a quiet riverside as Emmy shares her writing, the card she plays closest to her chest, means so much more. It's empowerment through vulnerability. Emmy, who is so unwilling to share herself with others, is doing so in an open space, with a broad, beautiful sky in the background, in an open, grassy, public, inviting, and warm location, casually and comfortably, not worried about being the social outcast. It's then that it's revealed that Mob rejected Emmy's confession a week ago. She suspects he only hangs around out of pity. The truth, Mob genuinely enjoys his time with her. He doesn't want to reject her because he'd be doing the same to the one instance in his life where he feels a deep bond. Emmy keeps pressing Mob, even admitting she only asked him out as part of a dare. That her group of friends thought Mob was such a joke after he froze up during his speech, and figured he'd be an easy mark. At this point, you'd be right to expect any normal person in Mob's position to be very angry, to label Emmy as a bully and want nothing to do with her. But that's not the case here. Combining a feeling of a fleeting romance, and it turns into a realization only Mob could have. Emmy isn't a bad person. She hangs around with assholes, because in middle school and high school, that's what you do. Rationalizing it as better to be a complicit bystander than a target. I did the same. I made myself as inoffensive as possible to the point where very few had any strong feelings. Mostly hiding anything I cared about. Not in the sense of deeply tucking it away, but just never really bringing it up. I don't remember having many conversations about games, and my friends weren't such because of an equal love for the medium. If anything, I recall more instances where people would be talking about gaming and I'd generally stay quiet. In fact, during my senior year, I wrote a review of the Dragon Age Origins expansion, Awakening, and someone I was friendly with remarked, "Why didn't you review something less nerdy?" For years, I never shared my writings with anyone I knew, just posting them online for whatever site would have me or random blogs. When Emmy plays along with her friends, saying she only wrote the novel out of boredom and to screw with Mob, the leader of the pack tears it up. The sharp change to the shreds of paper against a blood-red background and a ringing of infuriation lacks subtlety, but in this moment, that doesn't matter. She keeps playing along though. It's the only thing she knows how to do. But Mob, being the sweetest boy of them all, who can't read the room, comes in, gets on his knees, and starts picking up the scraps, saying he wants to be more open and protect what is important to him. Emmy joins in. It's a futile endeavor. Chances are a few of the pieces have already blown away. And are they really going to tape it all back together? The novel is gone, but what's important here is not the item, but the intent. Emmy has found someone who isn't just social cloaking, who genuinely cares. Sure enough, the wind sweeps away the pieces. Emmy isn't worried about it, but Mob takes a step further than he has in a long time, breaking a vow he made at the start of Season 1. Using his powers not to exorcise a ghost, protect someone in danger, or fight a bad guy, but for an act of empathy, not caring if anyone sees that he isn't normal, just passionately being himself, all for the sake of a single small act of kindness. Speaking of small acts of kindness, donating to my Patreon would be such a thing. Also, liking, subscribing, commenting, all that stuff is really good too, and I am immensely grateful to the 1,000 plus subscribers I now have.